Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to Teaneck's information forum on accessory dwelling units. Thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate the interest and all the emails that we've received. The ADU ordinance was just passed earlier this year. The ordinance was intended to address housing and affordability and accessibility within our township. It also was intended to support the aging in place and multi-generational living and disability accommodations even. Its intent also is to increase affordable housing options without new infrastructure. Okay, so we're going to be referring to a PowerPoint, and those that are in Zoom world, you may be able to see it, but just rest assured that it will be posted on the township's website. So we're going to be here. I'm here with our township officials, and we're going to be going over some real specific details as it pertains to what you need to know as property owners in terms of accessory dwelling units. My name is Denise Belcher. I'm deputy mayor here, and I'm going to be kind of like just moderating a bit. We have our attorney, Scott Salmon, that is with us today, and he's going to be talking about some of the key details as pertains from what you should know as a homeowner. What are ADUs? They are self-contained housing units on a single-family lot. They can be part of the primary dwelling or a detached structure. And they must meet zoning and construction standards. And we do have our construction officials here tonight, which will be talking about the zoning permitted use in terms of zoning locations. So take it away.
Good evening, everyone. All right. So the most important thing to bring to your attention is that ADUs are permitted for existing single-family dwellings only. And in order to facilitate them, they are allowed to be put inside your existing dwellings as a part of them. They can be attached to your existing accessory dwellings, such as a garage, or they can be standalone structures if your building and lot coverage allow for it. Our residential family zone, or the RS zone, has a dual lot and building coverage limitations, which will apply to you if you're planning to put an ADU in. If you have a lot that is 5,999 square feet or smaller, you are allowed to have a building coverage of 30% and a lot coverage of 47%. Now, your building coverage is anything with a roof, which the ADU would add to if it is a standalone structure. And your lot coverage is every piece of accessory structure or main structure that you've put on the property. That includes walkways, driveways, patios, decks, garages, etc., excluding sheds under 120 square feet though, so that's good. Lots that are 6,000 square feet and larger have a 25% limitation on building coverage and a 40% limitation on lot coverage. That is something you'll have to discuss with your professional architect or engineer when designing and planning where your ADU should be located. If you have a lot of open space, you can have a freestanding one. If you're tight for space, putting one above your garage or inside your home might work best since it will be already encompassed in your numbers. It is important to know that if you have a lot or building coverage that exceeds what is the norm, but it's legal, what we call legal non-conforming, due to it being historically so or through a variance at some point, and you put an ADU within the confines of that, you're still okay because you're not exacerbating the non-conformity. What else? Your ADU must contain all the living requirements for a unit. It can't be sharing bathrooms. It can't be sharing cooking facilities. You must have sleeping, cooking, bathroom, and living facilities that are self-contained. It's essentially an apartment. Additionally, if you are going to put an ADU on an existing accessory structure, such as a garage, a detached garage, it has a total height of 24 feet. Garages normally have a limiting height of 15 feet, which adds 9 feet of height to the total of a garage slash ADU. Detached garages have a 3-foot setback by law from rear and side yards. ADUs have a setback of 4 feet from rear and side yards. So if your garage is conforming at a 3-foot setback or non-conforming at a lesser setback, the ADU built on top of your garage must be set back to meet that 4-foot criteria. That's, again, a design criteria you and your architect will have to work out. Trying to think if there's anything else. Those were the important zoning parts. You will have to comply with all the building and fire codes, obviously, the UCC. That includes installation, your fire smoke detector COs. There is a parking regulation. You'll have to provide 1 additional parking space in tandem. So if you're working with a detached garage style, you'll be able to use that existing driveway to hopefully meet that criteria. The most important part, and I guess the first step of this process, is for you to get a current survey of your property. Surveyors are state licensed, so all of them will give you a pretty good job of coming out there, measuring your property, telling you what you have to work with. And it is important to ask them to give you your current lot coverages. They will give you the complete and total detailed calculation of what is on your land currently. And from that, you'll be able to figure out where do you stand with your totals, the 40 and 25 or 30 and 47. If you have lots of room to work with, you can think of doing something standalone. If you're already tight or under, it might have to be internal. So once you have your survey that is up to date, you then have to go and reach out to an engineer or an architect, a professional, and they have to draft up what you will be submitting to us at the building department. I believe they can't draw their own plans for this, right? It has to be done there.
Well, no, they can. I'll say they can in the discretion of the construction official. So, for example, if you let's say you essentially already have the equivalent of an ADU in your house, and you want to just make it official, and so it's legal. You're not, let's say, knocking down walls. You're not adding plumbing. You're not doing any of those things. You need to ask the construction official for permission to do so. But realistically, in that situation, we're most likely not going to require that you go out and get an engineer to do something that's already in place. I'll say that, and that is probably more expansive for things that are not expanding the property, the main house or on a detached garage or something like that. Certainly, if you're building a separate, detached ADU, separate from the house from the ground up, obviously you're going to need one for that. If you're going to be bringing in, electric or plumbing or something like that, or gas lines, then you probably will have to get it. But there are definitely some situations which you won't, realistically, you won't need a separate engineer for.
Okay.
And if I can add something to that, Andrew, there are many existing structures, as opposed to a lot of times when people think about ADUs as having to build something. A lot of times we see like almost like a tiny house in the backyard. But ADU can encompass an existing 2-part garage. It could encompass a basement apartment. It could encompass an attic apartment. The key is that you just have to follow the building code as it pertains to expanding out on them.
I'll just say on that note, I guess 2 things. First is that, professionally, I've seen a lot of ADUs in a place like, let's say, Lambertville, on the Pennsylvania border, where because of the dimensions of most of the lots there, they typically have detached garages. They're long, narrow properties, and so they have detached garages behind the house. It is extraordinarily common down there in Lambertville, for example, for where people convert their existing garage into an ADU. I shouldn't say extremely common. It's, fairly common there. But that's something that, someone's not building something entirely new. I'll see them a lot in attics and in basements, places where homeowners are not necessarily using frequently on their own. And so that's, those can be popular locations as well. One thing I want to note that I think Adam asked about in terms of the zoning and design of these of ADUs is that you a lot of times people want to have it when they have ADUs, they want to have a separate entryway into the ADU. That way they don't have to, whoever's living there doesn't have to go through the main property. It's totally fine. The only requirement on that is that you cannot have two doors that are facing the street. So sometimes you'll have, let's say, a garage off to the side, and you'll add a doorway from the garage. It's coming off the street, and you have the main doorway to the house that's coming off. You can't do that. That's mostly for a safety reason. If the police or fire or someone's coming like that, you don't want them getting confused as to essentially which unit they're going into. So when someone calls 911, they'll be able to ask, essentially where should we be going. So that's just something else I just want to note as well.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to take questions after we finish the presentation. So hold your questions. We definitely want to hear from you. One of the things I just wanted to mention that Scott had pointed out, even though the council, we passed this ordinance in January of this year, we're the 11th, it's only like 11 municipalities in the entire state. In fact, I think we were like number 9 at the time, but when last week, I went to the New Jersey Redevelopment and Planning conference, and that was the number that was thrown around, that there's 11 towns within New Jersey that have passed ordinances that allow for ADUs. When we drafted our ADU ordinance, we looked at other similar types of towns like Princeton and Montclair, i.e. Princeton having a university, like Montclair, like Teaneck, looking at them from the standpoint of having a senior population that wants to age in place, those types of things. So I just want to say that as New Jersey municipalities, increasingly adopt ADU ordinances, they're embracing a smart multi-benefit housing strategy, so that it takes into account things like, our residents aging in place, addressing multi-generational living within the same lot, and so forth. Andrew, do you have any more you wanted to add?
I don't believe, I think we hit all the
People
important points, but
Sure,
if
I'm
anyone
sure.
wants to get granular when the questions come up,
Once they
You
have
want
questions.
to talk about the affordable housing element? The affordable housing element for this? You want me to mention? Okay. So one other thing that I should mention as well is, so in the ordinance, it allows for, it says that the total floor, it limits the total floor size of the ADU. It says that it basically can't be more than 40% of the main dwelling unit, or a maximum of 800 square feet, whichever is greater. The idea being you don't want to subsume the main house by having an even bigger ADU. It should, the whole point is it's an accessory, not the main structure. One of the things that we built in here that we saw in other municipalities is as a way to encourage property owners to dedicate their ADU for affordable housing purposes, which requires a 30-year deed restriction, is that it increase if you do so, if you apply that deed restriction to your property and it becomes an affordable housing unit, you're allowed to increase the size up to 50% of the floor area of the main property, or 1,200 square feet, whichever is greater. In addition to that, if regardless of whether it's you designate as affordable housing or not, if the ADU is fully handicap accessible under the New Jersey the barrier free subcode, the entire property is given 85% increase in the total maximum floor area allowed. So the way to incentivize properties to be completely handicapped accessible, and those are things that we saw in other ordinances as well, or in other towns as well.
We're going to talk for a moment with Michael from our health department to talk a little bit about any type of health and safety requirements.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So from the Health Department, we will be enforcing the Property Maintenance Code. That's Chapter 29A of the Code of the Township. Additionally, in terms of ADUs that are being used as rental units, we will be conducting certificate of health inspections as well. I know, Scott, we were talking about the fee for that. Would you be able to speak on that?
Yeah, so I'll say currently so ADUs are required to comply with all health department health codes. They are subject to all the same inspections and things that any other property or rental property are required to comply with. We will what are the current I'm blanking on the current amount for the fee. What is it now?
For ADUs, we're discussing 125.
No. Sorry, I want to clarify this before I say it. What is it, the current one for apartment? $7. Okay. So currently the code has a fee of $70 for apartments for the rental inspections that are conducted by the health department. We're going to be proposing an ordinance for the council's consideration that would create a specific fee for ADUs and set it at, I'm sorry, blanking, 120, 125, 120, right? One to set the fee for ADUs at 125, because I'll say there's more, I think they're more intensive, more involved than a regular apartment just because of the nature of them. That is not currently on the books yet. We're drafting that right now, and we'll submit to the council for their review. But that's something that will potentially be adopted.
Thank you. That's everything from the Health Department.
So as you guys can see, everyone can see, this is ADUs, it's a new concept. As we progress, we are certainly going to be looking at best practices, making sure that homeowners don't feel as if they're kept in the know as to what the requirements are from a compliance perspective. But also that we want to do certain things to really help our homeowners to really explore this alternative form of housing. One of the points that I wanted to cover is a lot of times people ask, what's the value when you talk about property transfer. First of all, when you're selling your property, if you have an ADU, you have to disclose it. It should be a part of your property seller disclosure. That meaning that you have declared an ADU. A lot of times people think, well, is it a two-family? Like a new buyer may walk in and say, oh, this is a property that is a two-family, but it's really not. An ADU is a single family with an additional accessory dwelling unit. The new owner must reapply and pay a fee of $100. So when they at property transfer, that new owner would have to say, I want to continue this ADU and pay a fee to the township. And ADUs cannot be sold separately. They are a part of obviously the same lot. So I just want to mention those things in general. Okay. So Scott, did you have anything else that you wanted to cover?
I guess one thing I should mention is, so we talked about a lot about the numbers and the sizing of all these things. ADUs are also subject to the same variances. Or I should call them potential variances as any other property. So depending on the size of your property, or what is it exactly it is you're trying to do, what we have currently in the code may not be an exact fit for what you're looking to do, and so you would be entitled to apply for a variance to the land use boards, just like you would for any other bulk requirements that we currently have in the code for anything else. Doesn't mean you're going to get it, but you are entitled to apply for it depending on the situation. So there is some flexibility there from the numbers that you say.
Okay, so just to summarize some of the key points, and then we're going to open it up for questions. We would say plan ahead and consult the zoning office. If you have a question, by all means, reach out to the building department. Maintain records and your annual filings. ensure the construction matches what the township, pretty much speaks to, having to have. There is, here again, this will be available on our website along with the ordinance itself that goes into detail. At this point, we're gonna open it up for any questions. And if you could come to the mic and speak into the mic, that'd be great. We're gonna give you, it's not good and welfare, but roughly if you could pose a question within like the time frame of 3 minutes. Come on. Yes, thank you. Yes. Mhm.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having this session. I have a couple of questions. How many inhabitants? Is there a limit? Is there a guide in the ADUs? If the ADU has X number of square feet, if it has, how many people can live in an ADU based on relative size? Next question. Basement apartments. Can you have an ADU in a basement if there's no direct egress and access to the street level? Third question. You said something about enforcement. I think that came from the health department. As far as I know, there is no enforcement officer here. And there are so many buildings right now that are acting as boarding houses. We all know where they are. If they're in our neighborhood, everybody goes wink, wink, and nothing ever happens, even though it's brought to the attention of members of council, zoning, health. So I'd like to know about enforcement of these codes. And the last thing is, if something in the town, which is a single family dwelling, already has a condition that by these ADU rules would not be acceptable, like it already has a balcony or it already has a second door facing the street, what happens? Thank you.
Sure, I can take a couple of them. In regards to the balcony question and the door question, that's the simplest one, so I'll do that one first. We would request when you do the plans, that the ADU has no access to the existing balcony. That'd be the regulation, since an ADU cannot be tied to a balcony in any way. Your design would have to show an ADU that doesn't encompass it or is attached to it anyway. Same thing with the door. If the door exists and the multiple doors that are there and the non-conforming doors are used for your PD, your primary unit, that's fine. We're not limiting you on your existing doors. That is, if one of those doors would then be used for the ADU, if that's your plan, you could either go for a variance or very simply move the door to the side of the house to meet compliance. Let's see. Family unit size, I'll leave that to the attorney because the definition of family gets a little squirrely. As far as if you have a basement apartment, if you want to make a basement ADU and you said there's no direct egress, did you mean that the basement apartment ejects into the first floor and then there's a door?
That.
I think, as far as I know, that's okay. Yeah. That's okay within, as long as the stairs don't lead to the primary unit. Oh, see, that's different. You would have to then design something so they are separate. They must be separate units.
I just want to say something and turn it over to Scott. The whole concept in the ordinance, if you read through it, is that the property owner has to live either in the PDU or the ADU. Okay, so it's not like a absentee, owner. The whole idea is that there is some type of connection. I'll let you speak to what family.
Yeah. So I'll say, first of all, it goes by the same all metrics. It's not the ideal word for it. The same criteria as any single family home. With a regular single family home, you're not stuffing 50 people right into a single family home. It's a similar kind of concept behind it. Typically, as a rule of thumb, the way I've always seen it I guess, applied, is that you take the number of people that you intend to live there, put the number 50 behind it, and that's how many square feet you have. So if you have, let's say, I don't know, 5 people, put 50 behind it. So 500, you need at least 550 square feet. So it depends on really on the size of the ADU. If you have using that example, you have 550 square foot ADU, you can fit a maximum, I'd say, realistically, of 5 people in there. It's not something that you can fit, let's say 20 people in a place that size. That's the usual rule of thumb. It's a little bit kind of like a loosey-goosey kind of thing because there just isn't a specific. I can't give you a specific number. It's really just how many people can actually live in a space like of the given size. So I'll say different parts of this are enforced by different parts or different individuals with the township. For something like that, I would say that's a health issue. So that would go to the health department. There are the existence of an ADU that where it's not supposed to be is something that would go to zoning. If there's, I'll say, construction issue with it, there's an electrical problem or something like that. That's something that would go to the building department. So it's going to be different parts of this are enforced by different parts of the township.
Any other questions? Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for having this presentation. I just have a quick question. An ADU, would ADUs be considered affordable housing by nature? And if so, if it is considered affordable housing, how will that impact our requirement to produce affordable housing? Thank you.
So they're not affordable housing by their nature. They need to be dedicated as that. And what that means is you have to essentially put a deed restriction on your property for a 30-year period that deed restriction is going to last. And it's essentially a guarantee that for that period, that the ADU that's being offered for rent is only going to be rented out at affordable housing prices and for people who are eligible and qualify for it. If you do that, or if you're interested in doing that, and you contact the township, we can, I'll say, work with you to help you do that and provide you with the paperwork that you would need to do it. We can essentially, yeah. So we want to provide you with the paperwork you would need to do that. And if you do that, you by deed restricting it in that way, then it does count towards our affordable housing numbers. So that's one of the reasons why we want to encourage people to do it, and that's why we included in here the increase in floor area size that you're allowed to have. We're allowing you to have a bigger ADU if you are deed restricting in that way. One, because we just generally want to encourage people to do it, but two, because it's affordable housing, that means you can't rent it out at market rates, and so it'll be easier to rent it out in general with larger properties or if it's a bigger ADU, and so it's a way for you to offset some of the decrease in income that you might be getting.
Here again, as a part of that disclosure, you would just disclose if you sell within those 30 years, you would disclose that you have the ADU and it is affordable unit. Yeah.
And I should say, if you deed restrict it, any title search that a property that a purchaser is going to do, it's going to show up on there. So it's not going to be hidden to anybody. Yeah.
Hi. Is the ADU limited to be rented only by a relative or someone with a disability, or is it open to anyone?
No,
Anyone.
No, it's not limited in that way. Not limited in that way. You can rent it out to anybody, but you as the owner need to be either living in either the PDU, the primary unit, or the ADU. You have to be still living on the property. Sometimes people think that they can just rent out both, and now they have essentially a multi-unit thing. You can't do that. So you still. So I will say though, I've seen it before where people essentially rent out the main house and they live in the ADU themselves. That's totally, that's fair and permitted. Mm-hmm. You would definitely be allowed to do that as well.
Got it. I had another question. You may not be able to answer it. What's the minimum height? Like, because the place I'm thinking is in my basement. It's not that high, the ceiling. Like, is there a minimum height that the ceiling has to be?
I mean, is a building?
That's a construction official question. He's not here today, unfortunately. We don't have via zoning and limitations, but I believe it's what 6 feet.
I think I'm pretty sure that under the building code, it's 6 feet. I guess in theory. you
But
could-
again, don't quote us on that. It's not us,
Yeah.
but that's
Okay, got
from-
it, got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any questions on Zoom at all? Lisa? Oh, okay, all right. No problem. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Very informative. So I have two questions. My first question is for tax purposes, will the ADU be calculated the same way as the primary residence or is it different? And my second question is very, very different, but maybe if you all can point me in a direction where I need to go, I would like to know about getting a pool, an indoor pools installed on my property and what would be the department I should speak to about figuring out, okay. I teach self-rescue swim for children, so.
Yes, an indoor pool is tricky, but they're not disallowed. And as far as taxes, the tax assessor couldn't be here today. But he did say that an addition of living space will simply calculate additional living space at your normal rate. So it will be a substantial increase in tax.
Could be depending on if you already have something there and they're already.
Exactly. So if you're planning of putting it inside your existing house, that's already a living space. So new living space would be that standalone or like that bump out, creating brand new living space.
I'll say on the indoor pools as well. I would suggest talking to Adam to the zoning as well as the building department. Those are the two areas I guess I would start with depending on.
Yeah, building and zoning for the pool.
Yeah.
All right, yes.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Three questions. First one is, so the note about using the same material as the main house. So question if that is the same thing as just the facade, like siding or stucco, or is that referring to the actual creation, like the sheathing or the studs that are used, in terms of how they have to mirror that insulation on the outside or inside from a practical standpoint? What is that continuation if you're building in addition to it? And then also have a question regarding the fee. Just out of curiosity, what makes the health inspection for the ADU a little bit more rigorous than your standard rental fee? So just curious in terms of what are those additional steps that are taken there. And then the last question that I have is, so mentioned about the ADU not being sold separately. If it is a detached ADU and someone is looking to, let's say, split their lot or sell it, are they able to sell that with part of the lot, or is the ADU not able to be sold at all unless the primary unit is being sold as well to the same purchaser? Thank you.
I think I can take the last question and then I'll turn the other. Yeah, it's like a package. So if you're selling your primary primary home, the ADU would go along with it. So you couldn't separate it. That would be like, subdividing a lot and this, something that we would think would happen.
Okay, as per the fee for the units for certificate of health inspections through the health department, we're still in the process of working out a fee schedule for that. So it's not definitive at this time, but this was with the input of the actual inspectors that conduct the inspections. But this is something that we're still taking into consideration, so it's not finalized at this point in time.
For the fees, I'll say, I think the general idea behind it is that if you go into an apartment building, first of all, the apartments are typically roughly approximately the same. It's I'll say more streamlined. If you're going into someone's house to look at the ADU, it can be more complicated to evaluate it because it's, I'll say, more integrated in a larger property. That's the general idea behind it. For that, you guys for the facade, the outside of the property, it's just about the outside materials. As long as whatever you're using to construct it is up to code, doesn't really matter to us. It's just about, so that way doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. Like sometimes you'll see when someone does like an addition on their house, maybe they can't get the same material, the same materials, and you very clearly see that it's not different than the rest of the house. The whole point of the ADUs is to integrate them into the house and into the neighborhood. So it's just what's on the outside. Inside can be totally different. Yeah.
Sorry, follow-up question to that. A lot of times we see in like different designs where you have, especially in modern architecture, you have like a brown piece, a gray piece, a black piece, different parts, but are they still part of the same unit?
Mhm.
In a case where you're doing an ADU, if the siding does not create, and I don't know who the judge of that would be, does not create a definitive, this is a separate house, but this is rather the same house, it's just a different aesthetic on that specific section. I'm interested to know, one, who would make that decision, and two, would that be allowed in a situation? So it still blends with the rest of the house, but it may not be the same exact facade.
I think if it's blending, if it's still blending with the rest of the house, then it meets the purpose of this.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, we're fine, thanks.
Hi. Two questions. One is whether the ADU is connected or not connected to the house, will the house have a need for a new address for mailing or for zoning or for any purposes? And then my second question would be, because if you're adding a new bathroom and a potentially kitchen, would they have to be, how will the town evaluate the input for water, for gas, for electric coming into the primary house? And how's the town looking at doing those additions or those modifications?
As far as the address, that's something you'll have to take up with the tax assessor. The tax assessor's office generally constitutes address changes. As far as we're concerned, it could be simply 1 to 3 Main Street A and B. For our internal tracking, we use block and lots, so that wouldn't change anything. We would simply have a block and lot with an ADU and a PDU on it. It doesn't impact us in that way. And as far as your second question, can you?
Yeah, I didn't understand. I was sorry. Can you repeat the second question? I was having trouble following what you were
So
asking.
because if you're doing another house, a smaller house, now you're gonna be adding a bathroom and a kitchen. Will the town have to reevaluate the input of water or electricity or anything like that, gas coming into it, that it can handle it? Or how's the town, is it looking at it as if it's a regular addition, or is this a different category?
It looks at it as though it's a regular addition. I'll say most of those issues are going to be between you and the utilities as to really what they're able to do. But we don't treat this any differently than just any other addition. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Bill C is next. You have a question? Derek Schwartz. Okay. If you have a question, if you could speak up. Okay, anyone on Zoom that might have a question?
Mr. Schwartz, I think you're muted.
Okay, is this Bill or Derek?
Both of them are muted. Yeah.
Okay, so either one, if you could unmute your device and give your question.
Bill's unmuted now. Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Okay, Bill, what's your question?
Thank you. Is there a minimum lot size or space distance size for filing for approval? Meaning if the house was to fill up another 30% or 50% of the property itself, would there be any restriction or minimum size?
Yes, older regular zoning regulations for building and lot coverage apply. So you have to fall within the criteria. So if you're an undersized lot that is legal non-conforming and past what is your regular criteria, you can either build within the confines of what you already have on the lot or apply for a variance if you want a detached ADU.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. No more hands on Zoom? Okay. Okay, Ron, what's your question?
You let him in? Oh. Ron, can you accept the message on your screen so we can hear you?
Ron, if you could accept so that we can hear you. And then unmute your device.
Okay, can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to know, since we can add an ADU, can I add, just like a duplex, they have two separate utility meters on the side of the house. Can I add a meter for that ADU? So this way they can pay their own electric usage of electricity.
So the question is basically if you can have separate
Utilities.
separate meters for the utilities. So
Correct.
yeah, that's a question for the utilities that they can answer. I would say typically in my experience that is fairly common. I don't know. It's in your specific case if that would be a problem or not. But that is fairly common. So I wouldn't expect that to be an issue.
Thank you very much.